Yes.
Alright, so I've continued working on the editor aspect of the Innovation Portal. I wanted to quickly show what the current Innovation Portal has for editing your portfolio. It's a very basic, it's the TinyMC implementation. As you can tell, there's a tiny area. You can expand this and retract it, but information you enter here, you have these limited styles to work with, and then everything you enter is going to be entered in here. However, some of these styles, especially whenever you use things like paste from Word, it's going to create issues, and after you save, what it looks like there isn't a representation of how the style is going to look whenever it's being saved. So this sprint, we've worked on updating the editor quite a bit. The sidebars have been cleared out of all the actual contextual menus, and the contextual menus are now on the elements themselves. So with the system, you still have you can drag and drop all your information, you have your little building blocks to build everything. But this sprint, the ability was changed so that whenever you double click into the box, it turns on an edit mode that gives you a contextual editor of all the different tools inside of it. So you can align your text however you want. You have the ability to bold, underline, do whatever sort of crazy fonts that you want while you're doing it, and then say you've screwed everything else up, you can just come in here and just remove all your formatting and do it again. This sprint specifically was more geared towards the font size and font colors. With it, you have basically unlimited to how big or how small you want it. You can make your text a lot bigger if you want to give it some color. All the colors work in line, so anything you do just happens, and you have access to all your options right up front. And as you move it, it's going to follow along with the box. And it tries its best to, while you're editing and say resizing while you're editing, it's going to reposition so that keep everything nice and fluid, and just all the options right at your fingertips so that you can just keep going with what you're doing. So if you're hitting here, you're working with your paragraph, you're doing some styling, and you jump over to the heading, you can go straight to updating information there as well without any interference in what you're doing. And then it goes further to where while you're editing, you can sit here and move up information into what you're creating so that you can make the feel of how you want your portfolio to look. Since you're pretty free to add information anywhere, so you can build very non-traditional layouts even that work however you want them. There's also been additions, just they're a little bit more subtle, but like while you're resizing, it will the background color of or the border color will change just to indicate what you're changing. Another one is we've kind of followed how Photoshop and other editors work, where you don't go into edit mode until you double click on an element. So you double click to get in, and that allows you so you can move things around what you're working on, but you always have focus in what you're working on where you click, and then the second you get out of it, you cancel the edit mode. For this, we did get some more advanced functionality with it. It still has the default, whenever you misspell, it'll try to figure it out, but you now have the ability to do some find and replace. So say you messed up something or you want to find some specific information, you can actually use the built-in information to go ahead and update any issues or find some section. So say you had a huge long paragraph and you wanted a very specific section, you could use the find functionality, and it'll point you directly to what you were looking for. So it says, hey, you were looking for heading, let's go highlight it, and it gets that all set up for you. Beyond that, most of it's just been cleaning up and getting it all to work. We've used for the contextual editor an inline implementation of CK editor. It solves and provides a lot of really useful functionality just out of the box, and allows us to put more focus on the flexibility of the editor instead of spending a lot of time doing these individual buttons custom. Beyond that, am I missing anything, Andrew or Estel? I think that was most of it. This sprint itself, it was focused. It was to get the ability to change font colors as well as font sizes. So both of those were achieved, and we got a lot of extra functionality along with it. Since like the ability to strike out subscript, superscript, search and replace, none of those were actually in the system, and it's built in even the undo redo stack so that you can, if you back off your changes and you're like, well, I didn't want to go that many times, I just wanted to get rid of the strikeout, you can redo it back so you don't lose your information. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else. So if anyone has questions, or if Andrew wants to go ahead and pass on to the next step.
Are all the edits live writes?
Are all the edits what?
Live writes? I mean, when is it it's being saved?
It doesn't save yet.
Okay.
So that's actually one of our stories for the next sprint, is getting it to save.
Okay. Is that intended to be a live write, or just
Yeah.
like a button?
Yep. To the user, it will appear to be a live write. It'll actually be some polling mechanism on the background doing it, but
Okay.
One of the things that this addresses, as I'm thinking about the questions we've had from especially the launch group, like could we ever use this? One of the biggest obstacles to people using the innovation portal on a daily basis, rather than okay, I will gather up all my artifacts and then we will just pound it into the innovation portal at the end like a scrapbook, which is not its best case scenario, was the editor. And the one thing that was asked for when we started the innovation portal, there's a online kind of editor that's embedded in another product called Weebly. So they said, what happened to Weebly? Where's the drag and drop? One of our goals in this, and one of the things that lenses you can look at as we talk about the editor function of the innovation portal, relative to all those concerns, is if we can make this thing, if we can take away those barriers so that, one, what you see is what you get. Literally, Cameron mentioned in the old innovation portal, sometimes you build something and then you put it in view mode and it doesn't actually represent, they're not the same. Here, what you put down and when you hit print, that'll be exactly the way it looks. Fonts, placement, everything. So that's really kind of nice, and the whole goal here is to make it as intuitive as possible and as straightforward as we can, so that we promote the idea that it's just easier to build it on the innovation portal than to, say, try to build it in Word and then try to transfer it from Word and over to here in terms of styling, in terms of all the things that I'm doing. So that includes some of the things like spell check that are going to be coming up. Did you show that already, Cameron? I'm sorry. I know that. Yeah, it's those kinds of things. So if there is something that you have seen in other editors, or if there is an experience you've had building web pages and things that you don't see here but is important to you, that would be a great piece of feedback. Looking through that lens of, this is just so easy to use that I could make a portfolio right now. If we hit that mark, we're doing good.
Any other questions around the editor at this point? We're going to pass this over to Estel now so he can go over some of the review stuff that he's been working on.
Thank you, Cameron.
All right, is everybody able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so from the last sprint, the newest functionality that I've have added to the review system is you no longer have an edit review element page that you go to that was like an unstyled mess and things like that. So now you're able to go to any elements for the review, and you've got this nice little button down here that you click, and it will slide up a review panel for you to enter your review. Here you can choose your scores from 0 through 5 or question mark if you haven't decided on a score to give the end user yet, and you can give comments for the individual element that you're reviewing. So if you're not entirely sure what a 1 represents as far as the rubric is concerned, you can click your selected element a second time, and it brings up this floating box that we've dubbed the flying rubric. And here we see that a score of 1 for presentation and justification of the problem happens to be is unclear, unelaborated, and clearly subjective. So we know that 1 has a clear definition. If we wanted to look at what a 2, a 3, or a 4 look like, for example, you can just click on the elements inside the flying rubric to see what the definitions of those scores are, so you know how to score the element appropriately. So whenever you're done looking at this, you can just set it aside, or you can click the X here in the top right corner to go ahead and dismiss the rubric and select any score that you wanted. So if I hit update, and it saves the review that I've given for element A, and closes the panel here. If you want, you can open up the panel and see that the score 4 has still been applied, and the comments that you've got there still exist, so they are persisted in the database. So you're free to switch to element B, for example, and then switch back to element A at a later time and change your score if you wanted, for example.
I have a quick question. Can you have more than one floating rubric, or is it only one score point at a time that you can see? So if I wanted to compare 3 and 4, if I thought it was between a 3 and 4, and I wanted to kind of look at both of them at the same time to compare which one I thought it was, or do you have to flip back and forth between 3 and 4?
Currently, it's just a single floating rubric. You can change the scores down here as well, but it is a single floating rubric, so you would have to flip between them.
But that would be awesome.
Yeah, I didn't think of having multiple floating rubrics. That's definitely something that we can, that's an idea we can toy with and see if it's something useful for us.
Yeah, I just think cognitively what raters do when they actually rate, they're looking at the rubric, they're looking at the artifact, and then they're looking at the rubric, and if they're trying to discern between 2 different score points, it's helpful to have the description of both score points in front of them at the same time. So just a possible suggestion that would make it easier for the raters.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Okay. But yeah, currently it is just 1, but it's not very difficult to be able to spawn multiple flying rubrics. So
yeah, I like the simplicity of it, though, is really nice. So when you get down to 2 different score points, you don't have all 5 that you're trying to, you can really narrow it down to 2.
Right.
Something like that. I like that.
Okay. But yeah, those are the modifications that were made to the review system. You can flip between any element that you want and give it a score. And you can also, if you want to check the score of an element, even though you're not on the element, you can say, if I want to view the score that I give in element A, and I'm on element F, you don't have to switch to element A. You could just highlight element A and then click on this pin icon here in the top right corner, and it will show you, I've given it a score of 4, and here's my comment. Okay, so if there's anything I missed, I think I will give this back to Andrew.
All right, thank you, Estill.
All right.
And thank you, Carolyn.
Questions about that?
No, looks good.
We're going to pass this over to Aime now, so she can show off the new SAS and Compass conversion she did.
This spring for me was a bit different from the rest of them. Usually I'm spending most of the time doing design work and applying the design templates through CSS. This sprint, I worked on the design of the review element that Esther just showed, that, or that layout, but also most of the time I was working on this, which is converting from CSS to SAS. SAS is a preprocessor of CSS, and what it does is allows, I know most of you maybe you're not gonna be able to tell the difference, but I'm just gonna explain very quickly, is allowed to incorporate some of the benefit of the scripting languages by adding variables and certain operators and if and then statement to the style sheet. That way the style sheet can be even more efficient and it can help us actually work faster in the future implementing the design layouts and templates. It was a very time consuming work because you require pretty much refactoring the entire style definition of the site. And while I was doing that, I was also taking care of certain inconsistencies that appear on the site when you are working on a project as big as this, and you are taking care of this week you're working on this area, and this week you're working on the other area, and so on. So there's certain inconsistencies that start to happen. At some point, you have to go back and do some cleaning up and recap. So from my perspective, was a very helpful sprint, very productive. The entire style sheet of the factor is now in SAS, and whenever we do the new designs implementations, it's gonna be even faster. Like we can do things like establishing variables to refer to the different icons of the site uses. So it's actually just, you only have to call it once by using this word, then you can come later and change the codes. These are the codes for the icons, or the fonts. So this was pretty much my sprint, just this work and the review design, and a couple of patching up CSS here and there. I don't know if anybody has questions about SAS. You can feel free to ask. I think I pretty much just say the basic about why we did it. It just creates a better style sheet, and it's cleaner and it's more efficient. We can actually do dynamic things, like we can reuse elements of the user interface design in other elements, so they share styles and the overall look is more consistent. All right.
Very nice, Jaime.
Okay.
Great,
And
thank you.
yes, you were gonna ask something, Dorothy?
No, just a thank you for all the
Oh,
interactions.
okay.
Thanks.
Alrighty.
All right. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
All right. Does anybody have any generic questions at this point? That's what we've got to show for this sprint.